used to believe that love meant safety, that partnership meant having someone who would protect your dreams as fiercely as you protect theirs. I was convinced that trust was the strongest foundation two people could ever have. But now, when I look back, I realize how naive I was. My name is Lena, and for almost 6 years, I lived in a world I thought was perfect. A world that slowly turned out to be nothing but a carefully painted illusion. When Ryan and I got married, everyone said we were the power couple. He was charming, magnetic, and ambitious. I was the quiet, grounded one who believed in hard work and loyalty. Together, we built a small design company from scratch. It started in our tiny apartment, where we'd stay up late sketching logo concepts and arguing over color palettes. Those nights were chaotic but beautiful. Two people chasing the same dream, side by side. Ryan always had this spark in his eyes when he talked about our future. "We're going to make it big, Lena. Just wait," he'd say, brushing a stray hair from my face. And I did wait. I waited through endless nights of stress, through client rejections, through moments when we barely had enough to cover rent. I poured everything I had, my time, my creativity, my love, into both the company and the man I believed would never betray me. Over the years, our hard work paid off. Clients started coming in, our designs were featured in small magazines, and for the first time, we had money to breathe. Ryan was glowing with pride, and so was I. We'd talk about expanding, hiring staff, maybe even opening a second office. Every success felt like ours. Shared, celebrated, cherished. I thought that's what love was supposed to feel like. Then came that morning, the one that changed everything. It was an ordinary weekday. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen, and sunlight spilled through the curtains. Ryan had already left for a meeting, or so I thought. I was scrolling through my phone when I noticed his laptop sitting on the counter, open. Ryan never left his laptop unlocked. It was almost a rule in our home. His workspace was his private zone. But that morning, something was different. The screen was glowing, a notification blinking softly. I don't know what made me look. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe instinct. But I leaned closer and read the words that would twist my stomach into knots. Final transfer documents ready for signature. My first thought was that it must be some routine business paperwork, but the title beneath it made me pause. It mentioned our company's name. I clicked. What appeared on the screen didn't make sense at first. The more I scrolled, the more my heart began to race. It wasn't just a business deal. It was a transfer of ownership. Our company, my company, was being sold. Not to a partner, not to an investor, but to Ryan himself. He was transferring every single asset into his own name. The document listed me as a former contributor. My name had been removed from the ownership record altogether. His signature was already there, bold and confident at the bottom. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My hands started trembling so badly, I had to grip the counter to steady myself. I read the document again, hoping I was misunderstanding it, but the truth stared back at me, cold and undeniable. Ryan wasn't planning a new deal. He was planning to take everything we had built together, and cut me out completely. I felt dizzy. My mind raced through every memory, every moment I had trusted him. The late nights, the shared laughter, the promises. They all suddenly felt fake, rehearsed, strategic. How long had he been planning this? Did he smile at me every morning, knowing he was about to betray me? The thought made me sick. I closed the laptop gently, my reflection flickering on the dark screen. I could barely recognize the woman staring back at me. My chest ached, but beneath the pain, something else began to rise. A quiet, burning awareness that everything I had believed about him, about us, was a lie. I wanted to scream, to call him, to demand an explanation, but deep down, I already knew what he would say. He'd charm his way out, twist the truth, make me doubt myself. He always had a way of doing that. So I didn't confront him, not yet. I sat in silence for hours, staring at that cold machine that had just revealed the truth I was never supposed to find. By the time the sun went down, I had stopped shaking. I poured myself another cup of coffee, but it tasted bitter. Maybe from the tears I didn't even realize were falling. That day marked the end of the life I thought I had, and the beginning of something else entirely. It was the day I realized that Ryan didn't just want success. He wanted control. He didn't just want recognition. He wanted everything. And for him to have it, I had to disappear. But what he didn't know, what he could never imagine, was that the moment he showed his true face, he woke up a part of me I didn't even know existed. The woman who believed in love and trust had died that morning. The woman who would rise next wasn't naive anymore. She was quiet, calm, and patient. The kind of woman who would learn exactly how to take everything back. I confronted him that night. The printed contract clutched so tightly in my hand that the edges tore a little. My voice trembled, but I forced the words out anyway. "Ryan, what is this?" I demanded, holding up the papers like a weapon. He didn't even bother to look surprised. He didn't stutter or make excuses. He just leaned back on the couch, completely calm, and let out a long sigh, like I was an inconvenience interrupting his peace. "Lena, you're overreacting," he said casually. "It's just a formality. You're making it sound worse than it is." I took a step closer, anger and disbelief tangling in my throat. "A formality?" I snapped. "Ryan, this formality removes my name from the company. Our company. You're signing away everything we built together." That's when his entire expression changed. His warm, familiar face went blank. Eyes cold, jaw tight. "I built this business," he said slowly. "You helped, sure, but I'm the face. The clients trust me. It's better this way." The air left my lungs. I stared at him, trying to process what he had just said. Better this way. Better for who? He stood up, brushing past me like I was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "Don't make this ugly, Lena," he said. "Just step back for a while. You'll thank me later." I couldn't speak. I just stood there as he walked away, leaving me in the living room with nothing but silence and those words echoing in my head. "You'll thank me later. But thank him for what? For betraying me? For stealing what I helped create?" That sentence replayed in my mind for days, like a haunting melody I couldn't turn off. I didn't tell anyone what had happened. I didn't even tell my best friend. On the outside, I kept up appearances, went to work, smiled through client meetings, sat beside Ryan like everything was fine. But inside, I was unraveling. The more I thought about it, the more I started noticing small things that had never seemed odd before. Late-night phone calls that ended the second I entered the room. Strange transfers in the company account that didn't match our records. And Ryan, always on his phone, always meeting with investors I had never heard of. Something didn't add up. So, one night after he fell asleep, I opened our shared laptop and began digging deeper. It took hours, but eventually I found it. A hidden folder buried in the company files. Inside were bank statements showing small but steady transfers of money, thousands of dollars at a time, all going into a separate account under his name. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. He wasn't just cutting me out. He was stealing from our business, little by little, to fund whatever secret plan he had brewing. The next day, I decided to follow him. He told me he had a dinner meeting with a new investor, someone important who could help us grow. I pretended to believe him, kissed him goodbye, and waited 15 minutes before grabbing my keys and driving after him. He didn't go to a restaurant or a corporate building. He drove downtown and parked in front of an expensive hotel, the kind of place you book when you're trying to impress someone. I waited in my car, my pulse racing, watching through the windshield as he stepped out and straightened his jacket. A few minutes later, a woman appeared, tall, confident, with perfectly styled hair and that air of effortless charm. She smiled when she saw him. He smiled back, that same charming grin he used to give me. They walked in together, hands brushing, heads leaning close. My stomach twisted. I followed them inside, keeping my distance. Through the glass walls of the lobby restaurant, I watched them laughing, touching, whispering. It wasn't business. It was personal, intimate. The way his eyes softened when she laughed, the way she leaned toward him, I knew exactly what I was looking at. For a few seconds, I just stood there, frozen, my body numb. Every part of me wanted to storm in, to throw the contract in his face, to scream at both of them for what they'd done. But then something strange happened. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel the same kind of rage I expected. Instead, I felt clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. He wasn't just trying to take the business. He was trying to take me apart, piece by piece. But he had made one mistake. He underestimated who I was. He thought I'd fall apart quietly, fade into the background, and let him walk away with everything. As I turned and walked back to my car, my reflection caught in the glass doors. The reflection of a woman who was done begging for honesty. Something inside me shifted that night. The hurt didn't go away, but it hardened into something stronger. Resolve. If Ryan wanted to take everything from me, fine. But I wasn't going to sit back and let him win. I was going to make him face the consequences of every lie he'd told. I was going to make him regret underestimating the woman who helped build his empire. I started my engine and drove off into the night, my hands steady on the wheel for the first time in days. The fear was gone. The pain had turned into purpose. He wanted everything good, because soon he was about to lose it all. Revenge isn't about fury that burns out in a night. It's a slow, disciplined thing, a machine you build out of patience and precision. The first week after I found the contract, I let the shock hollow me out. After that, I stopped crying. I stopped asking why. I stopped waiting for explanations I knew I would never get. I replaced every tear with a list, every sleepless hour with a plan. Ryan forgot one crucial detail. I was the one who had built most of what he wanted to steal. I wrote the code that organized our client files. I designed the templates and trademarked the key logos. I handled painfully detailed email threads and fed our CRM with the relationships that kept clients coming back. All of that access became my quiet arsenal, while he spent his days charming investors and polishing an image. I began to quietly gather proof. Not because I wanted to hurt him in the moment, but because I needed a way to make truth undeniable. I cataloged everything. I pulled bank records, traced the odd transfers, and copied emails that showed dates, amounts, and signatures. I saved chat logs from months ago where he promised one thing to our clients and did another behind my back. I exported backups of design files and time-stamped drafts that proved which projects I had authored. Every little piece of paper, every digital breadcrumb became a brick in the wall I was building. Then I did something people rarely consider when their world fractures. I aligned allies. I reached out to Eli, our accountant, at a coffee shop that smelled of cinnamon and paper. Eli had always been kinder to me than he let on. The kind of person who notices the small injustices and quietly keeps them from growing. When I showed him the hidden transactions, his professional face changed in a way I'd never seen. He turned the laptop toward me, whispering, "He's setting you up. He's moving assets into an account under his name, funneling funds. Once the paperwork's final, he could dissolve the company and walk away with the profits." Hearing it out loud felt like confirmation and relief at once. Relief because I wasn't paranoid. Confirmation because now I had someone who saw the numbers the way I did. Eli agreed to help, but legally and carefully. He explained options, documenting the fraud, securing IP claims, and creating an alternate business entity that could hold the creative assets I had produced. No theatrics, just steps that would hold up in court and in the court of public opinion. That was exactly the kind of calm I needed. While Ryan practiced smiles and signatures, I created a quiet parallel. I registered a new company name under a different owner, a name that sounded like ours, but would be legally mine. I filed the trademarks for the logos and registered the designs I had created. I copied project deliverables with meticulous version histories, so there'd be a clear trail showing my authorship. I moved client-related documents onto a secure backup server I controlled, then set up forwarding protocols so that, if necessary, I could direct clients to the new entity without raising alarm bells. Everything was done with the caution of someone who knows their house is being watched. Encrypted emails, burner accounts for communications, double-checked timestamps. I also built my emotional armor. I practiced my neutral face in the mirror until it felt natural. The one I would wear in meetings, at dinners. At any moment he expected my collapse. I learned to smile when he boasted about deals, to clap at toasts as if I believed in the future he desperately wanted. Playing the role of the supportive wife gave me the cover I needed to keep collecting evidence without his suspicion. People are more likely to reveal their true colors when everyone expects them to be celebrated. He never thought I would be that person. The waiting was the hardest part and the most essential. For 3 weeks, I pretended nothing was wrong. I helped him refine investor slides and practiced angles for the presentation he planned to use to justify the transfer. I even sat at the table when he mentioned the new consultant, Sophie, pretending to be pleased when the name came up, though my stomach tightened every time he said it. On the inside, every interaction was a data point. Who he called, what he said, where he went. I mapped his patterns like someone reading a map to find buried treasure. When the final papers arrived and he celebrated with a small dinner, I moved through the evening like a ghost in plain sight. Sophie was there, luminous in expensive fabric, laughter poised at the edge of her lips. They toasted new beginnings with champagne that tasted false to me. I clinked my glass and smiled, because beneath the veneer of celebration, I held the skeleton key to their plans. I had already created the path that would reroute clients and expose the transfers. I had the documented proof. Eli would anonymize and send where it could not be ignored. That night, I let them believe they had won. I let them believe their sleight of hand had worked. They didn't know that my silence had been a strategy, not surrender. They didn't know that every file, every line of code, every account statement had been harvested, copied, and placed into a sequence designed to topple the very house he built on deception. Control, not chaos, had become my weapon. And I was no longer the woman who waited to be saved. I was the one steering the course. 2 days later, I struck. I remember waking up before sunrise, the city still quiet, the world unaware that one man's empire was about to crumble. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. There was no dramatic music, no fire in my chest, just stillness. Because revenge, real revenge, doesn't feel like fury. It feels like clarity. By 8 a.m., the dominoes began to fall. Ryan woke up to chaos. The company's main server was locked. Every file, every design, every document inaccessible. Access codes had been changed. Credentials revoked. Backup routes rerouted to my private servers. Every client on our list received a polite but direct automated message. This project is now managed under a new creative firm, Lena Design Studio. Please contact us for updates. It was short, professional, and devastating. Within an hour, my inbox began to flood. Familiar names, confused clients, curious investors. I replied to each with calm explanations, attaching project proofs that bore my name, my timestamps, my authorship. Every piece of documentation I had spent weeks collecting now served its purpose, showing the world exactly who had built the company they trusted. By noon, Ryan called. His voice trembled with anger, confusion, and the faintest trace of fear. "Lena, what did you do?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Just taking back what's mine," he started shouting, words tumbling out too fast, excuses mixed with threats. "You can't just lock me out. This is my company. You're sabotaging everything." I waited until he stopped to breathe. "Our company," I corrected softly, "and you sabotaged it the day you tried to erase me." Then I hung up. Within hours, the investors began calling him, not me. They wanted answers. Their money was on the line, and they didn't like surprises. One by one, they learned the truth. Not from my lips, but from the documents I'd sent anonymously that morning. Every fraudulent transfer, every hidden account, every email thread where Ryan moved company funds for personal expenses. It was all there, undeniable, time-stamped, and backed by his own signature. Screenshots, contracts, transaction logs, all perfectly organized, all delivered to the people who had once called him a genius businessman. The fallout was immediate. His phone wouldn't stop ringing, though most of those calls weren't kind. The investor board demanded an emergency meeting. Clients pulled out of contracts, citing ethical concerns. Sophie, his so-called consultant, disappeared from his side almost instantly. Her social media went private. Her number stopped working. And just like that, Ryan was alone. The company he'd stolen from me began to rot from the inside. Without my designs, my leadership, and my client network, it was nothing but a shell filled with legal risks. And every lawyer he called turned him away, unwilling to touch a case so poisoned by evidence. 2 days after the implosion, he sent me a message. "Please, can we talk?" I agreed. Not because I owed him anything, but because I wanted to see the end of this story with my own eyes. When I walked into what had once been our office, the sight almost startled me. Desks were empty. The once bustling workspace now echoed with silence. The walls that had been covered in bright creative posters were stripped bare. Even the light felt colder, duller, as if the building itself was mourning what it used to be. Ryan sat behind his desk. The same desk where he had once laughed, planned, and lied. His hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. The confident smirk that used to drive me mad was gone. He looked human for the first time, small, defeated. "You ruined me," he said, voice raw, hands trembling. "Everything's gone. Investors pulled out, clients are gone, Sophie's vanished. Are you happy now?" I stood in the doorway, calm as stone. "No, Ryan," I said quietly. "I didn't ruin you. You did that the moment you betrayed the one person who believed in you." He slammed his fist on the desk, papers flying. "I made one mistake," he shouted. "We could have fixed it." One mistake. I took a slow step forward. "You didn't just take my company, Ryan. You took my trust. You used me, lied to me, made me believe we were building something together, when all along you were planning to cut me out." He lowered his head into his hands. "I lost everything, Lena." I watched him for a long moment, not with anger, but with a strange, quiet pity. "You didn't lose everything," I said. "You gave it away, piece by piece, for greed, for ego, for Sophie, for the illusion that you didn't need anyone but yourself." He looked up at me then, eyes red, pleading. "Just undo it, please. Tell them you misunderstood. Help me fix this." For a moment, I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Undo it? as if revenge was a button you could press twice to reset the damage. "No, Ryan," I said softly. "Revenge isn't undone. It's completed." He leaned back in his chair. His shoulders slumped, the fight leaving his body. I turned to go, my heels echoing against the floor, the sound crisp and final. At the door, I paused just long enough to look back one last time. "You always said we'd make it big," I told him. "You were right. We just didn't make it together." Then I walked out, leaving him in the ruins of the empire he'd tried to steal. As the elevator doors closed, I felt no guilt, just peace, because justice isn't always served in courtrooms or through apologies. Sometimes it's served through silence, the kind that follows when a liar finally runs out of stories to tell. Weeks later, I reopened my business, this time under my own name. Lena Design Studio. No more shared ownership. No more hidden clauses. No more signatures beside mine. It felt strange at first, walking into a clean, empty office without Ryan's voice, echoing in the background, or his plans crowding the air. But it also felt right. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm has finally passed. The first few weeks were a blur of rebuilding. I worked long nights, redrafted contracts, and reached out to clients personally. I told them the truth, that I was continuing my work independently, that my designs, my vision, my ethics hadn't changed. To my surprise, most of them didn't hesitate. They'd seen the chaos, the lies, the fallout. They knew who the real creator was. By the end of the first month, half my old clients had already signed with Lena Design Studio. By the third, I was turning down projects simply because there weren't enough hours in the day. The same investors who once praised Ryan for his leadership now reached out to me with quiet apologies, offering partnerships under new terms. I didn't take them all. I had learned which offers came with strings attached. My new team was small but loyal. A handful of designers who believed in me, not just the money. Every time I saw my name printed on the studio door, I felt something deeper than pride. It wasn't just success. It was ownership, the kind that no one could ever take away again. And yet, amid all the progress, Ryan's shadow lingered, not in a haunting way, but like an old scar that occasionally itches when the weather changes. Sometimes I'd stumble upon his name online, a new business registered, a new partnership announced. He was always trying again, always reinventing himself, but never quite escaping the past. Most of those ventures fizzled out within months. Investors backed out, partners left, people whispered about trust issues and bad history. He never found solid ground again. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. Instead, I felt something softer. Peace. Not joy, not triumph, just an unshakable calm. Because revenge, I realized, was never about watching someone fall. It was about standing tall again yourself. There's this misconception people have about revenge, that it's fueled by rage, that it leaves you bitter and alone. But that's not true. When done right, it's not destruction. It's reclamation. It's taking back the pieces of yourself someone tried to steal and building something stronger from them. For a long time, I thought Ryan had broken me, my trust, my confidence, my spirit. But as the months passed, I understood that he'd only revealed what was unbreakable. I had survived betrayal, humiliation, loss, and I had rebuilt not despite it, but because of it. Now when people ask me how I survived, how I managed to start over after being betrayed by both a husband and a business partner, I tell them this: you can rebuild from nothing, but not with the wrong person beside you. And it's true. Starting from zero isn't what destroys you. It's staying tied to people who hold you back, people who drain your worth and disguise it as partnership. The real danger isn't in losing everything. It's in losing yourself to someone who doesn't deserve you. Over time, I stopped checking up on Ryan altogether. His failures weren't my victories anymore. My focus shifted fully to what mattered: my growth, my people, my peace. Lena Design Studio grew quietly but steadily, rooted in honesty and creativity. The kind of business I'd always wanted to build, without compromise. Sometimes late at night, I think back to that woman I was before. Everything fell apart. The one who trusted too easily, who believed love and business could coexist without boundaries. I wish I could tell her what I know now, that trust isn't something you owe. It's something that's earned, and that lesson, that one truth, became my compass. I learned to listen to instincts I used to ignore. I learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're protection. And I learned that letting go of anger doesn't mean letting go of justice. It just means you've outgrown the need to prove your worth to those who tried to diminish it. Revenge gave me back my control, but forgiveness, quiet, private forgiveness, gave me back my freedom. Not forgiveness for him, but for myself. For staying too long, for doubting my strength, for thinking I needed someone else to make my dreams real. Now, when I walk into my studio each morning and see the sunlight spilling across my desk, I don't see the ruins of the past anymore. I see proof. Proof that even betrayal can become a blueprint for rebirth. The biggest lesson: that justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the sound of you moving forward, stronger, smarter, and unbothered. Because in the end, the sweetest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming everything they said you couldn't.